Rated mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey guys, this episode today is brought to you by our good friends at StreamYard. What is StreamYard? Well, it's a web browser made to connect easier and simpler. StreamYard Broadcasting, guys, uses a web browser type of software to connect with your friends. Possibly you're a podcast host and you're trying to look for a platform. Look to StreamYard Broadcasting, guys. It's easy. It's simple. Plans starting as free up to $29.99 or on their business scale. So if you're looking for a new platform for your podcast, for your music production, for just about anything, look no further to StreamYard Broadcasting. It's easy, guys. We use them here on the Patriot Angle podcast. We love them. StreamYard, love them. They have a lot of good features, such as background music, such as banners and brands to make your next podcast episode or anything more professional, guys. With their overlays, their background, everything is on StreamYard. So head over to StreamYard.com and sign up today, guys.
Broadcasting from the Big Peach of Atlanta, Georgia. A show unfiltered, unscripted, raw. The Patriot Angle Podcast.
Hey guys, this episode today is brought to you by our good friends at StreamYard. What is StreamYard? Well, it's a web browser made to connect easier and simpler. StreamYard Broadcasting, guys, uses a web browser type of software to connect with your friends. Possibly you're a podcast host and you're trying to look for a platform. Look to StreamYard Broadcasting, guys. It's easy. It's simple. Plans starting as free up to $29.99 or on their business scale. So if you're looking for a new platform for your podcast, for your music production, for just about anything, look no further to StreamYard Broadcasting. It's easy, guys. We use them here on the Patriot Angle podcast. We love them. StreamYard, love them. They have a lot of good features, such as background music, such as banners and brands to make your next podcast episode or anything more professional, guys. With their overlays, their background, everything is on StreamYard. So head over to StreamYard.com and sign up today, guys.
Alrighty, guys, welcome to another edition to the Patriot Angle Podcast, Unfiltered with Mike Gardner here, guys. Joining us today, guys, is going to be on the podcast today, Jimmy Dev, a property manager out of New Jersey. How are you, Jimmy? Welcome to today's podcast. Welcome.
What's up, brother? Yeah, excited to be here. I've reached out to Michael due to the fact that he was on a podcast. He did a podcast with one of the grassroots organizations I'm with, U.S. Freedom Fighters. So I was excited. I wanted to get back in, so I reached out and asked to be a guest, and he was gracious enough to let me be on the show, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Jimmy, first, before we get into these topics today, I did notice that you are from New Jersey, my home state, believe it or not. What's going on? I always want to know what's going on in, pretty much the neck of the woods, so to speak, of my guests. What's going on in New Jersey with this whole COVID hysteria, if you want to call it that, or, the COVID era. I know, Murphy has been putting a lot of restrictions on his state, with COVID and mask mandates. Are you seeing somewhat of a leniency with everything going on there in New Jersey, or?
Well, I think at this point, the hysteria of it is kind of isolated now. There was an extreme uptick in the insanity behind COVID, um, as far as people getting a little crazy with mask mandates and stuff. But I think since the summer has passed last year, it kind of eased up. I think with the Omicron, right? That kind of brought it back slightly. I mean, everybody. I mean, I know you're not. You're down in ATL, but everybody got sick up here. That I will say, and I've always been somebody who is like, I definitely don't believe in the hysteria behind all this shit. Oh, excuse my language, but I do say that everyone did get sick in November, December, January, like everyone I knew. So I think people are recovering now. It's getting back on track. We're still seeing a meat shortage now. We are seeing,
Oh,
going
wow.
to yeah, we are, at least where I'm at in Hudson County. We have seen the meat aisle kind of being just like cleared out. Not sure if that's panic buying due to COVID, but it was very odd. We seen Walmart just not stocked with meat, which hopefully that's not something else that's coming into play. But they do talk about shortages with the supply chain. And then
Right.
as far as the way we're treating each other, I think people have become a little bit more lenient. You still see people wearing masks that are filthy, which doesn't make sense to me, but
Yeah.
whatever. They think they're doing their part, and it is what it is. I'm not gonna rain on their parade. But
Yeah.
Murphy, I don't think Murphy can. I think people are pretty sick at this point with a lot of these mandates, so it's been a little bit
Yeah.
more lax.
I think everybody's getting sick. You mentioned the shortage of grocery stores there, mainly Walmart and the big box retailers there. And I mean, it's not just New Jersey. I mean, we're seeing that all over the nation. All over the states. I've got some good friends that work in the supply chain industry, and they're telling me that the reason behind these shortages is a lack of communication, negotiations between our labor department in the White House, in Washington there, negotiating, not communicating well with these supply chain companies such as Walmart, Amazon, all of them. Publix. Publix is a big grocery store down south. They're not communicating well with the supply chain industry, and there's where your supply chain shortage is coming. A lot of it has to do with this new era that we're living in, the COVID era. Which I touched on several of my podcast episodes. With Biden. And, I hate to bash him, Jimmy. He's our president. He's the commander in chief, of this country. But, Biden is he's not there. I think a lot of people are starting to see that. He's not there. His brain, his mindset, it's just like the elevator doesn't go all the way up to the top floor with this president. And, he's influencing these new policies now in where people work, where it's okay to take a day off if you feel, a little under the weather, and what does that do? That destroys the not only does it destroy the economy, but it destroys the workplace. It puts a strain on the workplace, and there's where your supply chain and there's where your shortages are. And then I touched the other day, which I'm going to get later into the podcast, with the trucking industry coming from Canada. So I feel your burden. I feel everybody's burden.
Yeah, Yeah, I think during this administration, unfortunately, they've definitely nurtured the nanny state a lot more. Creating the nanny state doesn't create a productive workforce, unfortunately. So
Right.
along with supply chain issues, you have the workforce issues. Unfortunately, laying people off for extended periods of time due to the boogeyman, and also telling everybody that you have a mandatory 14 days to stay home is obviously going to affect the workforce, which is going to affect every single thing around it. We're
Right.
still seeing that, and then unfortunately, by paying people the stimulus packages, I'm not saying that what's right or wrong, but obviously it was we're going to pay for it eventually, and it has
Right.
helped create a lot of the younger workforce to kind of really not care about work anymore. And that's one of the issues I see. It's hard for me to even hire people. People don't want to work. They don't come to work, and that in turn, um, all these other industries are experiencing that. People are just like, oh, I'm sick. I got to be out for 14 days, and they're just trying to keep up with certain things now. And
Yeah.
obviously, everything gets passed to the consumer.
Yeah, it's this new generation now. It's like you said, no one wants to work, and it's it the work ethic in this country is terrible. Um, yeah, I see it all over the place where I'm at, in Atlanta, Georgia, and where I see it in Atlanta, Georgia, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I'm down south. The work ethic is not always the same as it is up north. That's not the case anymore. The work ethic is terrible in this country. Whether you're down south, you're up north, you're out west, you're wherever, the Midwest. It's just like you said, no one wants to work. A lot of it is because of this COVID type of hysteria. They're using it as an excuse not to work. I don't know, Jimmy. I mean, if you don't go to work, how are you supposed to pay your bills? I mean, are these? I hate to say it, but are these? This new generation, are these kids? Do they understand that? You don't put in a solid 8 hours of work. How the fuck are you going to pay your bills? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
No,
I mean,
100%. Well, they got a taste of what it's like to sit at home and get paid for it.
yeah,
Um, and unfortunately, you're building a lazier nation by doing that. I mean, really, at the most critical time where we should have been out working, they forced us to stay home, and they paid people. I mean, people were getting paid money that they never had before. So if they worked at McDonald's, they were making more money at home. Of
yeah.
course,
With
if
the unemployment, yeah,
they did it for about a year, people didn't want to come back. I mean, the Jersey Shore was suffering trying to get people just to come back and work and the restaurant industry is here. Nobody wanted to work because they made more money sitting at home. And unfortunately, they've carried that attitude into where we are now. So yeah,
well,
this
yeah.
administration has definitely just, I mean, failed. It flopped. Sorry,
Well,
if you hate Donald Trump and you are a big Biden supporter, I can't understand that, and I'm not trying to get crazy with it, but I just don't see it. You tell me where the big benefits of having this administration in places, and if you can prove a great point, then I'll agree with you.
Well, it's funny you say that is, with the differences between this administration prior to the Trump administration. Okay, a lot of it. Well, let me go back first before what you had just mentioned. Where a lot of people, like you said, were getting paid. Last year they were getting paid unemployment. Some of these people were making more on what I call, and I still do, the COVID unemployment checks. They were getting paid more to sit home rather than somebody, working 8, 9, 10, 11 hours, and I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, that's crazy. Like, what is that doing to the economy? A lot of it, when this president was just giving money out like he was giving candy out on Halloween. What do you mean? The stimulus checks. I mean, he was up 1,200 there, 1,400 there, and then he started. I don't know if you've seen this, but then he started doing the stimulus checks, and I think he still is with the child care credit. I mean, people are understanding. They're like, why do we have inflation? Well, the inflation is coming from the stimulus. Your debt ceiling is always going to be that high when you just create money off of money that you can't literally benefit off of. I mean, I don't know if I'm making sense, but I mean,
No, yeah, I get it. I think this what happened was the stimulus checks were a payoff to the American people to close their eyes at the other parts of those bill packages that were being put out.
well, it was
All right.
more. Hold on, let me stop you right there. It was more of a distraction for what you just said. The bill packages, with the $1 trillion bill package that Biden wanted to, pretty much put through at that time, with the infrastructure. That was more of a distraction. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean distraction, but in a more exaggerated term, right? It was almost like
Yeah.
paying people off. As long as you fed that $600 a month or whatever it was to people, people were unbothered. They go, "Oh, I got all this extra money." Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I was definitely a person that well, I was unemployed. I was a commuter that worked in New York City. I lost my job due to COVID. I honestly, the stimulus checks helped somebody like me, but I made more money than that anyway. So I was still kind of, underwater with certain things. But for somebody to
Yeah.
work, at McDonald's and they're getting paid, we're getting relatively almost the same check. To me, it didn't make sense. Not knocking that person. I get it. I'm not knocking anybody out there that works. I know it's hard. Please don't take it personal. But um,
Yeah.
unfortunately, those things snowball into other things. And obviously, when I leave my house here in New Jersey, I see all those things. I see, the separation with, I see the racial tension. I see the meat shortages. I see, um, and you being from New Jersey, they've raised the turnpike, okay, for the last 3 years by 30% each time. Okay,
Yeah.
so I guarantee the last time you were here, if you had to go from one exit to the other, it's astronomical. And now they keep raising public transportation. There's going to be a breaking point somewhere. And unfortunately,
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a while since I've been up there. Yeah. It's been a hot minute, but yeah, I feel you. I feel you. I mean, what you do for a living, right? You're a property manager, right? So, I mean, do you want to kind of bring into the show? I mean, just are you guys seeing a drastic change in that industry? I mean, especially being up north. I mean, I'm sure it's going through some
well,
drastic changes.
Well, I would say I'm on the maintenance end, right? So
Okay.
of property management. I would say that the what has changed is the fact that um, because of um, the eviction process being put on hold for so long, people just don't pay their rent. We
Oh
have
wow.
tenants, yeah, we have tenants across the board. I don't want to get too much into it because I don't know how much I can say about it or not. But
Oh,
we
it's a
we
I'm sure that I'm sure the fact checkers, they'll be typing away, if they were to hear this conversation, this podcast. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, people just aren't paying their rent. I mean, we've got tenants that are in the double digits. I mean, $30,000, $40,000 just not paying for 2 years or whatnot. Some people are legitimately lost their job due to COVID, could never recover, and they are getting assistance to pay their rent, which is cool. I get it. I would not want to see those people on the street. And some people are becoming what we call professional tenants. They know that they can't get evicted, so it's every month. It's like, how can I come up with an excuse as to why I'm not paying my rent? So
Right.
in the residential sector, we've seen that. Obviously, that caused a lot of issues, and unfortunately, the courts are so backlogged that the eviction process has actually been changed now in New Jersey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I was talking with a coworker today, and supposedly it's so new that the prosecutors and the judges don't even know how it's going to be. So it's like you got to go in person and see a mediator first, and then maybe bring it to court. The old process was more of an automated process. You owed money, the process started for eviction. People would say, "I'm going to pay my rent now," but yeah, I mean, and on top of that in some of the in our portfolio in some of the cities that we're in a more urban areas. Um, being with all the COVID, being a sanctuary state, the homelessness has gone out of control. They
Oh, I'm
are,
sure it has.
they're running rampant in some of our locations, and I don't mean I think a lot of people think that when they think of homeless, they think of somebody down on their luck and they're living on the street, which in
Yeah.
some cases there is. Most of these people are drug addicts, alcoholics, they have mental problems. And these are the people that are breaking into our buildings, into our residential buildings and commercial spaces, smoking crack, using the elevator as a bathroom, peeing all over the floor, food everywhere. It's been an
And
absolute nightmare.
and what is Governor Murphy doing about this? What is his plans? I mean, does he plan on tackling the issue with the rising of homelessness there in New Jersey? I mean, does he give a damn? I mean, what's his plan
No,
of action?
he can care less. The last time he was in Newark was when Newark being we have locations throughout Newark. The last time he was in Newark was to meet Harris and Biden, and that was the last time you're going to see him over there. I mean, it's
Gee,
all just
yeah,
to put
well,
on a big show. He doesn't really
yeah,
give a shit
yeah.
about.
It's all political theater. Yeah, he was there to kiss Biden and Harris's ass, as they were coming into New Jersey. I mean, but I mean, you know. I had an episode one time last year actually about homelessness on how it's just it's getting out of control. I mean, I touched that on with the homeless problem mainly. We always used to like when you hear homelessness, you would think like cities like New York and Chicago and New York is like it's not as bad as it used to be, right? The homelessness right now in this country really, you look at places like San Francisco, which I call San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi's district. I mean, over there, it's terrible. You can't even walk down the streets of San Francisco, which I was in San Francisco about 4 months ago visiting some friends out in that area. We went to a five-star restaurant. There was a homeless guy. You have differences between people like they're either homeless or they're bums. Difference between a bum and a
Yeah,
homeless guy. A homeless guy is, like you said, down on their luck. They're in between jobs. They're trying to, make ends meet. A bum is just, he lives on the streets. He's always looking for a handout. I mean, we go to a five-star restaurant. We come out of the damn restaurant and we got to watch, because they sleep right in front of the restaurants. They put their tents right in front of the restaurants. You can't even enjoy yourself. This country, Jimmy, is turning into a third world nation, and it's really bad. It's really bad.
yeah, it absolutely is. And I actually have to respectfully disagree with you saying that New York is better now. Absolutely not. I was a
Oh no.
commuter. I was a commuter to New York for years. Me and my girlfriend, and it has gotten worse with COVID and with when De Blasio was there. So obviously, De Blasio had to play a certain tune. He was more in tune with the left side of politics, BLM, anything like that. He let the city go to shit by, putting handcuffs on the police. Basically, he put leashes on the police. They don't. I mean, they've done nothing about the homeless. The homeless actually has they've been running rampant in New York City, way worse because I guess it's almost like it's that passerby kind of mentality. When you're in a big city with tons of people and you walk by, you don't notice how many homeless are out there because it's filled with so many different type of people walking around eating, right? Once COVID came in and the city kind of shut down for such a long time, those were the only people left on the streets. And then once they realized that the cops weren't going to do anything, they did whatever they want. I mean, my buddy
Well, the
has been
cops. Well, the cops now. You have, because we live in which is another topic I was going to bring in. The woke culture. I mean, you can think woke was introduced to this country, from last year. With the killings and the black what was it, the black crime on black individuals. That's where you seen woke, right? That's where it was introduced. Now you can't a cop has to watch now all of a sudden. Cops are not the way they used to be, in the 20th century, in the 90s and the 80s. They're so different now. A cop is more like a freaking caseworker more than a law enforcement officer. And it's terrible that they can't enforce the law, especially with, whether it's crime or homelessness. They have to watch now because, these homeless people, anybody, Jimmy, they could sue the police officers, for, because everybody now these days is, they're sensitive, So,
well,
I
I
mean,
mean, I know, I know a bunch of cops personally, and older guys, younger guys, and I read an article earlier. I mean, once a lot of this woke culture came out, they put in for early retirement, or if they were at the retirement age, they put it in. Right now,
yeah,
we're even struggling trying to recruit police officers. It's not really worth it, especially if you're in New York City. In New Jersey, you do get paid more money, from what I hear, but in New York, you start off at low pay. You're constantly criticized. You're on camera. Your immunity, the immunity that we have given police in the past is in question, and they want to take that away. So there's really there's no incentive of becoming a police officer, unfortunately, and people know that, right? And that's why
yeah.
with the whole COVID hysteria, crime has gone up, homelessness has gone up, and these politicians. I mean, I think what happens is people are so concerned about, um, the right side of politics, or they still have like MAGA on their mind to the point where they're okay with electing anyone who it stands up and talks bad about the right. So what you get in return is just a bunch of these politicians who are just going to keep talking smack and force feeding you that spoon
It's
of nothing.
Jimmy, it's all about division in this country. Ever since when Donald Trump, uh, I don't think he lost the election. I can go into that, but that's on another. That would be another episode. But I mean, ever since the 2020 election, we've seen a shift, a political shift in this country, division, hatred, dividedness, everything. Uh, that's where the political shift came into play right after November of last year, and we're seeing that all over the board. And we're talking about the police crime and homelessness, and I mean I've seen it here in Atlanta, in the city of Atlanta, and just quite recently, we had lost about roughly almost 20% of our police force just in the city of Atlanta, because a lot of police officers, right-minded police officers, were getting sick and tired of the former mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and her corrupted, mindset. That there was no agenda. Now we have this new mayor that stepped in, and I think he's doing somewhat of a better job, but we still have that issue, with the crime. I mean, crime now in Atlanta is up by what, 20%. I mean, I don't know what the crime is there in New Jersey or New York, but that's another issue, the crime.
Well,
COVID. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's
well,
to blame, but
well, you will see. I have seen crime go up with the national bail reform being tweaked. Crime has definitely gotten to a different level due to the fact that most people now will get arrested and be released within the same day, if not the next day. So
yeah,
there's no you didn't have time to even think about what you just did. So if you're somebody that's high on drugs and you just committed a crime, that person's out the next day. They're back to doing the same stuff. Same
yeah,
thing with New York. New York is New York during COVID It was running rampant, and unfortunately, anytime there is a political march, which is usually a BLM led march or something with Antifa or anything like that on that side, right? Destruction
Yeah.
always follows
Oh, sure.
within the day that they're doing their protest and the weeks after. So you have an entire community, and you have these certain communities, like you were saying, where you're at now, where crime's high, with a total disregard and lack of respect for the community and for the police and for the people that live there. And they know that there's no repercussions. They're either going to get out the same day or next day, or they're not even going to show up anymore.
Well, the crime, it's I guess, there is if anybody doesn't believe that this exists, it does exist, with the right wing and left wing, with the right wing, mainly Republicans. Anything a Republican or a conservative does, the left, I mean, they have their attention. That's wrong. But, when you go to speak up on the crime on the left wing, the Democrats, they tuck it under the rug. I mean, we've seen that with last year with the Black Lives Matter, that movement, right? In the summer, the riots, the looting, the destruction of businesses all over the country. The media, where were they on that? Nowhere. Now we're talking about this, which is still on the media's mindsets with the January 6th, calling it an insurrection. Well, if you want to know where my thoughts are with the insurrection, the real insurrection was in November of 2020 with the general election. That was the real insurrection.
Absolutely.
Do I agree with people breaking into federal buildings in Washington, D.C.? No. They should be charged on a federal crime, whatever it is. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but, if they break into a federal building, yes, they should be tried for that charge. But some of these people are being, like, literally, I've heard, I don't know if the rumors are true, but some of these people are still being kept, in these basements of jails in DC, since January 6th, and they're calling it, huh?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said they're calling it the worst event since 9/11. Like it's worse than 9/11. After hearing that, I had to laugh, because I'm like, you're telling me this is worse than 9/11? No.
Well, I mean, we live in a time now where we have political prisoners. It's pretty plain and simple. The fact that they're being held without their due process, they're getting charged with exuberant amount of jail time for something that was for a nonviolent offense. If that day, I mean, obviously the way the media reports on it is extremely biased. I mean,
they're biased on every single level. Yeah, I do agree with you on that.
Anyone that watches it, I mean, of course, if somebody's listening to this and they don't agree with me, they're going to say that he's a conspiracy guy, or he's right wing, or he's this or he's that. And it's easy to just kind of put a label now. But unfortunately, if you did watch the riots in Minneapolis, you had a reporter sit there and say, well, they're mostly friendly, they're mostly peaceful, while a building's burning down in the back. There's police in another building that they're trying to burn that building down. They're knocking store owners out unconscious when they're trying to protect their stuff. And then the excuses, they turn around and go, property you can rebuild. You can't come back with a life. And then unfortunately with January 6th, it's an insurrection. It's an angry white mob. It's white supremacy. It's this, it's that.
Yeah, it's I don't. Yeah, it's like Nancy Pelosi just last year. It was like, oh, they're just statues. They're just statues. What? I mean, after hearing that, Jimmy, it's like these people. I mean, they truly hate America. For saying something like that. Like they're just statues. Like whether you want to agree with a Confederate statue or a Union statue, whether you agree with that or not, that's history, man. You can't that's history. You got to respect that. Somebody died for that purpose, whether that purpose was right or wrong, whether the Silver War was right or wrong. That was a purpose, man. That person had a family. That family had a person that was in that Union Army or that Confederate Army. That you have to respect that, whether you agree with it or not. And for Nancy Pelosi last year to say, "Oh, they're just statues," people just do things. Like, what? Come
Well,
on.
she's a big loser anyway. Unfortunately, her along with Biden and people like that, they sat very comfy in these chairs, right?
Yeah.
As politicians, and they never really had to live in the real world, like most of us that work hard. So it's
Mm.
easy for people. It's easy for people with money and land and influence to kind of turn around and dismiss a lot of things that people hold near and dear. And unfortunately, they'll never understand that. And when it comes to history, regardless of whether you like it or not, that's where woke culture unfortunately comes into play, where they say,
Yeah.
well, we don't like it because it's offensive. Take it down like it never happened. At that point, I mean, I hate to break it to you guys. I hope you never read the Bible, and especially the Old Testament. You might as well try to get rid of that too. And unfortunately, then you're going to go down the road where it's like the movie V for Vendetta, where the guy had to
Yeah.
hide Quran in a secret room in a basement because it was outlawed for you to have any kind of volume of sacred law outside of what the state approves. So
I hear
that's
you.
really, really where we're going down. If people want to keep following woke culture and everything's offensive, you will then get either you listen to the state and whatever is state approved, or you suffer the consequences, like the people on January 6th.
Yeah. Yeah, guys, what you're hearing on the phone here, a property manager, Jimmy, out of New Jersey, speaking politics, guys. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back after these words. Got to take a quick little break. Be right back, guys.
Hulu has live TV?
Hulu has live sports?
They do.
Hulu has live news?
That is correct. And Hulu also has
Live talent show.
It also has over 75 live channels.
Flip like cable, stream like Hulu. Time to have Hulu plus live TV.
All righty, guys, back on the show of shows. I'm your host, Mike Gardner of the Patriot Angle podcast. Today we have Jimmy, a dev property manager out of New Jersey. Jimmy, want to get back into this topic here, kind of spin off a little bit of what we're talking about. This new topic here, which I did mention a little bit on the episode, a couple episodes back, with the mandate freedom of the Canadian truckers, basically stepping up against Trudeau, the prime minister there of Canada, basically demanding that, they are not going to take the freaking jab in order to keep their jobs. Like, what's your insight on that? Do you think they're making a good decision? Do you think that they're, committing what I call career suicide? I mean, what's your thoughts on that one?
I don't know if they're committing career suicide. I think that they're standing up for what they believe in. Canada has had very strict mandates, and just like every other country, but they're sick and tired of the bullshit. Unfortunately, their leadership and Trudeau has, he walks through their neighborhood smiling, but the people are hurting and they don't appreciate it. And, kudos to Canada. I didn't think they had it in them like that. They are coming out in record numbers. They are super patriotic. And I honestly didn't think that. I had no idea that that's what Canada would turn into. That's what the people were about up there. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to see it. They're standing up for what they believe in, and you have to. And unity is the only way that you're going to be able to actually get your point across. It's the same thing with how things happened here in America, where people feel a certain way and they're marching down the street, breaking windows, and then all of a sudden, the next day, the mayor's out there smiling and giving them money or whatever. I want to see more from them, and I would hope that in any way we can support them as Americans would be.
You know, like I say every single time, I try to say it on either every episode or every other episode. You know, in order to beat this thing, you know, this tyranny, because that's what I think it is. I think it's more about political control. You know, the COVID is more about population control, because we know that, you know, at first, I'm going to admit, I looked at COVID as a serious threat. I really did. And then as we went through it, you know, month by month, you know, remember those words by Dr. Fauci, right? We have 12 days to slow the spread, folks. 12 days. We all should remember those words like it was yesterday. We have 12 days to slow the spread, right? 12 days turned into damn near almost now 3 years. We're 3 years almost into this thing. And I look at that now. Yeah, I look at it now, and I think it's more about political control over the people, because we have a bunch of tyrants now in office. This country has literally reformed itself now into a socialist nation. We are almost as the same as communist China under this leadership. And I think that's where they want to bring us to. You know,
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I don't disagree.
I mean,
I think they definitely they like the model of what China is at now, especially with the way that they have almost total control over their people.
Yeah.
And obviously the COVID has been, with COVID, there has been a one side of all elections recently, or legislation coming out.
Right.
So I mean, it has been a great. I mean, for the left, it's been a great tool of distraction, a great tool for you know, getting what they want, and unfortunately, you know, this is what it causes. It's going to cause people to eventually get sick and tired and go out and do things like these strikes and you know, like you said, at first, I think a lot of people thought that you know, we feel the same way. Everybody at first is like, hey man, I don't want you to get sick, you know, and then all of a sudden when it's like, hey, either you're going to take this this needle or you're going to lose your job, then people start saying, holy shit, what is going on?
Yeah.
And for you to tell
Yeah.
a truck driver he's got to take it, like, I can understand if you said, listen, you want to work in a hospital, this is what we're going to do. I'd say, you know what, not a big fan of it, but I'm not in that industry. And if you do work in a hospital, you believe in the science behind it, no problem. You should be able to have the choice to take it. If you're telling a truck driver he has to take a jab or he's going to lose his job, or you're telling somebody, you know, who works remotely, well, then you have to start to ask yourself, what is this really about? Is this really about flattening a curve of people getting sick, or is this more about control?
Well,
and like you said,
you know,
it's about control.
Yeah, you know, this has all been done once before in our country. This is nothing new. You know, I've said this off the airways with a couple of friends of mine. You know, I've said, you know, this is nothing new. You know, look at the 80s. You know, what they did. They did this similar. They did something similar to that. You know, with the AIDS epidemic. You know, Dr. Fauci has been in the CDC for years. You know, more of a politician than an actual doctor. You know? And they've done this in the 80s. They've done this in the all the way back to the 20s with the Spanish flu. I mean, masking, social distancing, it's nothing new. I say this to everybody. When you have something new that comes into a country, okay, there's one or two things that they're doing. They're covering up something that they don't want the American people to understand. And a lot of people are like, what are you talking about, Mike? Like ETs or, you know, some type of crazy advanced technology? It could be. It could be. I mean, we've seen that on other shows, you know, other podcast episodes talking about that. You know, they're either covering something up. They don't want the American people to understand because they feel that we might not understand it, or we might have a hard time trying to understand it, or it's just straight up political take away our freedoms, take away our freedom of speech, our freedom to assemble, take away all that. When you have a government that can easily manipulate its people, you don't have a democracy anymore. That's my own personal opinion on that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. There's been it's just one of those things that I don't know. I don't know where things are going to go, but obviously, like you said, if believing certain politicians behind things or certain individuals, I don't know if I can believe so much of the science behind what a lot of things are being said from this administration or from certain government factions anymore, due to the fact that the science is selective, unfortunately, and you see it all the time here. Fauci was in an interview.
Yeah.
Fauci said, "No, masks. Those things are novelty. Those are to make people feel safe about things." And then all of a sudden, a month later, he's like, "You need to wear a mask," and you wear a mask, and then the viral load's down, and then people went on this, nutty. I'm going to buy these cheap blue masks and wear them all day, which scientifically does nothing.
Yeah, Jimmy, they don't work, and I think this administration knows that they don't work, and they know that they can't manipulate the people thinking that they can work, because we all know when this whole thing started, right? We started out with those blue surgical masks, right? And let me explain for the listeners out there, okay? Because this is a proven fact. If you want to fact check me, go ahead. The blue surgical masks were designed for droplets. Not for droplets of a cough or a sneeze, but droplets of blood. People in the surgery rooms, they wear them. In the operating rooms, that's what it was designed for. Designed for a purpose like that. And they know that. The CDC, the Biden administration, they know that. Because where we are right now, Jimmy, we're noticing now, they're developing literally a new mask, every single one, right? N95, the K95, all these new masks now coming out. Because they know that they can't manipulate the people with blue surgical masks. People are waking up to understand that they don't work. They're bullshit. Some coughs right in front of you, it's going to go right for the mask. Whether it's a blue mask or a cloth mask. So they have to keep on, developing new mask. Oh, this one works better than this, or double up your mask. And this, it's one scenario after the next. When people wake up and they understand that it's all bullshit, it's all fabrication, that's when we get our country back.
Well, also, I mean, not to sound messed up, but if you look at our 4-star admiral in the U.S. Public Health Service sector, I don't want to hear science from that person. I really don't, because I don't believe they believe in science themselves. So, like I said, there's been nothing but in the last 2 years selective science and selective things. And I think what they want you to do is just believe people because they have certain degrees and whatnot. And I'm not downplaying that these people are doctors. They have way more experience than me in anything, and in medicine, obviously, right? So, but at the same time, listen, there's just certain things that you have to ask yourself: what is the end game here? And I think the right side has actually woken up a lot more. So not to be confused with woke, but they've woken up a lot more and said, I'm not going to deal with this stuff anymore, and we need to do something about it. And that's where a lot of people are right now.
Well, yeah, they're using, like I said, the politicians, right? The government, Washington, they're using this science to fabricate what's actually, I mean, the evidence there, Jimmy, it's not there. There's nothing to back it. So they're fabricating it to actually have people believe that it's actually true when it's really not true. You talk about misinformation. You post something on, and they know people are waking up, because you could post something on social media and you get fact checked by these independent fact checkers. which, half them are not even revealed. Some of them, they work for, Zuckerberg or, somewhere there in the San Fernando Valley there of California. You post something about COVID, automatically it's fact checked or it's shadow banned. They're doing it because they don't want the truth out there. They want more manipulation after manipulation after manipulation. They want the control. They know they're going to lose the House in the midterms. They know that. It's a proven fact. They know they're losing control. If you look at Nancy Pelosi, I believe she's being sued under a couple lawsuits due to the COVID. They know that they're losing it. So yeah. I mean, look what they're doing to poor Joe Rogan. I mean, Joe Rogan has. That's my next topic as we're going to close out the show here. Joe Rogan has actual proven scientists that he questions people. He questions these scientists on his shows, about COVID, related to COVID. And then, the White House just what was it, yesterday, had made a press briefing. Jen Psaki there, Peppermint Patty, I call her. Peppermint Patty was questioning Joe Rogan. Oh, we demand Joe Rogan to be taken off of Spotify. Why? Because he has an actual scientist, an actual doctor, several doctors on his show, elaborating the science, the truth about COVID, behind COVID. It's terrible what's going on.
They've been after him for a long time. Unfortunately, the left has been trying to find ways to cancel him for a long time. Unfortunately, his following is so large that all types of people listen to him. He's pretty influential. The reason why he's so dangerous is the fact that he opens people up to alternatives outside the narrative. So he's telling you in one way that he believes in certain medicine, but he's also giving you, listen, this is this kind of therapy really helps. This kind of this alternative to taking a pill really helps. Or he's sitting on the show and he's giving you one of the shows that I seen with him when he was on there, and he's talking with the head one of the head medical people for, what was it, CNN, I believe, I forget exactly, and he's kind of asking him. He goes, well, you guys said ivermectin doesn't do anything. It's horse dewormer.
Horse dewormer,
He's like, why would you allow people to say that? And he had no idea, I guess, that he was going to question him, or he just had no answer to it. And it's true. He goes, you mean to tell me that a Nobel Peace Prize winning company who makes human medicine is not being talked about, and what we're doing is we're labeling it horse dewormer. And they've been trying to cancel him for a very long time. And what's going on now is they are trying to use, they know they can't cancel him. So what they want to do is they want to try to use Spotify to put the pressure on certain things. And Spotify has already done stuff like remove the Alex Jones shows, which is kind of bullshit because, yes, he's been deplatformed by all the major players in the game. But, YouTube at least kept the integrity of the episode because he was only a guest. And they let it. And now those shows are gone that host that had Alex Jones as a guest. So now what these critics want to do is put the pressure on Spotify. And he didn't sell the rights to him, I don't believe, but he is being hosted by them. So and they did pay him
the critics. They want to go. They want to go after people like Alex Jones, their Infowars, .com. They want to go after Joe Rogan there and Spotify. They just literally permanently banned Dan Bongino off of YouTube. I mean, Dan Bongino, I checked out his show the other day, literally laughed about that. He says, ScrewTube, basically, he calls it ScrewTube because it's just little nicknames. I love it how these people come up with nicknames. But, YouTube, he laughed about it. I've been begging YouTube to cancel me. They cancel me. That's great. You just boosted up my following. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that. Awesome. So, what are they trying to gain by canceling these people? Because they're exposing the truth about this COVID, right? Now, here's something else. You just mentioned that Joe Rogan is a threat, right? He's to people. He's not a threat to people. He's not a threat to democracy. he is a threat to the radical left, because the radical left, they hate that. They hate when somebody like Joe Rogan, an outsider that literally is just he's a podcast host. He's has a lot of affiliation with the MMA world, right? Wasn't he in MMA or something as a fighter at one time? But
no,
I mean,
well, he's been involved with the UFC as a commentator for a very long time, and then Zuffa, who was involved with the UFC, used to sponsor his comedy.
That's right. He was a commentator. I thought at one time he had a very, very short career as a lightweight, a featherweight competitor. But I mean, set the side, here with Joe Rogan, they're going after Joe Rogan, it just quite recently, Neil Young. You have to cancel me or you cancel Joe Rogan. Well, Spotify kind of looked at that scenario and they said, okay, well, Joe Rogan has 400 following. I mean, it came down to either keeping Joe Rogan or keeping Neil Young. Don't get me wrong. Neil Young, a legend in the music industry, right? Came out with great albums. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, business is business, right, Jimmy? I mean, you're going to keep somebody that kind of gives you good ratings off your platform. And like I said, Joe Rogan has over 400 following, right? He has a $5.6 million, my math might be off, contract with Spotify. So, yeah, he's not going anywhere with Spotify. I mean, he makes the platform a lot of money, you know what I mean? So,
no offense to anyone who likes Neil Young's music, but fuck him. At the end of the day, if I went out right now and if I did a poll right now from the college and asked people if they knew who Neil Young is, most people are going to say no. No offense, yeah,
they're going to say
the music industry, but
yeah, they're going to say Neil who?
Exactly. They're not going to know who he is. I say, do you know Rogan? I don't even have to say Joe. You know Rogan. You listen to him, absolutely. Like I said, his show is dangerous, like you said, to a polarized left due to the fact that he's opening people up to the alternatives. He's putting young people, he's putting people that just want a new perspective in touch with so much great content and so much great information. Well,
yeah.
You have to ask the question. You don't want a well-informed public. You don't want a well-informed. And if you're doing left versus right, if I was somebody on, if I'm on the certain side of the political scale, I don't want the people that I see as my competitors or enemies being very well-informed or being, exposed to that much information and kind of,
yeah,
it's just it would make sense. But in Spotify's defense, he ain't going anywhere anytime soon. There's no way that they're going to let the king of podcasts at the current moment go because somebody, who's well past his prime has requested this. And that is the unfortunate part of inclusion and woke culture, is that people think that because they have they have a problem, they want a safe space and they want to make these demands. And you know what?
Yeah,
fuck them, like I said.
Yeah. People, yeah. I mean, like I said, don't get me wrong. Neil Young might have worked in the heydays, right, of the music industry before Spotify and digital platforms. Might have worked, but hey, this is not the 1970s or the 1980s anymore. This is the 2020s, right? So, kind of. Sorry, Neil, it doesn't work anymore for you, pal. They're going to go with somebody that, kind of gives them good ratings. If Spotify wants to be around, they're going to make a good business decision. Check this clip here. I'm going to plug in a sound clip here. This is Fox News basically commenting on this. I think we have Peppermint Patty here on this clip here. Check this out.
Let's talk a little bit about this. Yesterday, what's going on with Joe Rogan. Also, a number of different artists are pulling their music from Spotify because they feel like he should not be allowed to be there. Yesterday, let's see, Graham Nash and India Ari now pulling their music. Neil Young has pulled his. Now, interesting, fans of Taylor Swift are urging Taylor Swift to pull her music from Spotify. They've also noted Madonna and Adele as well. if they pull their music, that would be something.
Yeah, there's a difference between Neil Young and Joni Mitchell and Taylor Swift and Rihanna and those people. But the reason this is happening, of course, is because some of these celebrities feel like Joe Rogan shouldn't be on Spotify because they're accusing him of COVID misinformation for highlighting people with different perspectives. And Spotify responded by saying, okay, any podcast that talks about COVID, we're going to put a disclaimer on it. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was asked about this yesterday. Here's what she had to say.
Disclaimer, it's a positive step, but we want every platform to continue doing more to call out mis and disinformation while also uplifting accurate information. Our hope is that all major tech platforms and all major news sources, for that matter, be responsible and be vigilant to ensure the American people have access to accurate information on something as significant as COVID-19. That certainly includes Spotify.
So what is misinformation? Is Joe Rogan?
Did you hear that? Oh boy, I'm sorry, Jimmy. I have to laugh. I mean, you know, it's very comical. I mean, where we become as a nation here to call this misinformation. Like, are we? Hold on. Whoa. Are we actually living amongst gods in this country now? Are there gods now here on earth that know everything? Are we living in a perfect world? Because if we call something that's not right, it's labeled misinformation, right? I mean, it's the nuttiest shit I've ever heard in my life. Nutty.
Well, I mean, the crazier part behind it is the fact that with everything going on, they sure do have a lot of time to just talk about random stuff. So, you know, like we started off in the beginning of this when I said, yeah, I'm worried there might be a meat shortage and there's a fertilizer shortage going on, which will eventually come into play, and maybe that'll help, you know, drive prices up even more with more shortages. And the number one thing is Joe giving out bad information about COVID, or is he giving misinformation? There's nothing. I mean, he has super credible people on his show. These people have they've worked in their industries for a very long time. They've gone to some of the best institutions, and they've practiced what they've been doing. So to say that he's giving out wrong information is incorrect. And it has been shown that certain medications that he talks about on the show were helping with the treatment of COVID.
Mainly the ivermectin. Yeah, I mean, you know, you mentioned that. Yeah, you mentioned that one type of medication, and it's shadow banned all over social media, all over the internet world. They don't like it. They don't like it. Oh, no. You can't use that. You have to get a Pfizer shot, or you have to get your 6 or 7. What are they up to 8 boosters right now? I mean, it's. I scratch my head. I scratch my head because, I mean, this is the kind of crap that was warned to us from our grandparents. You know, I've mentioned this on U.S. Freedom Fighters podcast. You know, like, we have to, and I could touch this. I wish I had Brad on the show tonight, but you know, even when I was talking to Brad and Jerry, we have to go back to the basics in this country. There's no other way to restore and preserve this nation, Jimmy. We have to go back to the fundamentals of this country, because if we don't, it's too late. A lot of people are like, well, it might be too late, Mike. It's never too late. But we have to fight. We have to go back to the basics in this country. The digital world that we're living in, the social media, the mainstream media, we're advancing too much. And I think that's what the problem here is in this country. We're advancing too much as a society, as a planet. It's destroying our brains and our mindset. I mean, I don't want to get kind of kooky right now on the podcast, but I don't know if this makes sense, but we're advancing way too much. We have to slow down because it's destroying us, literally.
Yeah. We've lost our connection with our neighborhoods, with our community. with ourselves, spiritually, mentally, and physically. And unfortunately, if you live for cancel culture, it's only a matter of time before somebody comes and cancels you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you look at people, your neighbors, right? You just mentioned neighbors, right? You can't even look at your neighbors right now because with this COVID scare, they look at you like you're an alien or something from outer space. You can't even shake somebody's hand now. Back in the day, you look a man in the eye and you shake his hand, right? With respect. Now it's like the social distancing, the COVID, it's destroyed our society. Like uh, there's no communication. I mean, I see this with my own family sometimes, family and friends, people are more on their cell phones and their devices than actual, spending time with one another. You know what I mean? It's bad. It really is. We have to go back. We have to go back to the basics. Technology's cool, don't get me wrong, but we have to go back to the basics. I mean, if we don't, we're going to destroy ourselves. There's no country in this world, Jimmy, that that overcame its own demise. Every country in this world had some type of scenario, some type of downplay. Look at Venezuela, the most beautiful country, one of the most beautiful countries in the world. What are they doing right now? They're suffering from socialism, communism. China, communist country. Cuba, another one, right? All over. I keep on saying America's on life support. I don't know how we're going to overcome this, but we have to. We have to find a way, because if we can't overcome this COVID hysteria, it's going to destroy us as a nation. It really is.
Yeah, it not only affects us in many different sectors, but what I would say that is very important to oneself is mental health. And unfortunately, living in these days has caused a lot of issues for people who may have had pre-existing conditions, or people just having new types of stress, anxiety, and mental health issues. So, you know, that's the unfortunate part
a
about it.
lot of that.
That isolation.
Yeah, a
will
lot of
keep
that
you
has to do with. Yeah.
Yeah, isolation. I mean, it's not even, if you really kind of look into some, some people and what they were saying coming out of the 70s, 80s, and 90s on what a tyrannical government may seem like, what a tyrannical government may look like. This is the perfect playbook as to what it would look like. I mean, Big Brother is watching, Big Brother is censoring you, he's fact checking you, and he's telling you to take your jab and be a good boy.
Well, a lot of this, what we're seeing right now, is we're living through, and I say this time after time, and a lot of it makes sense. And I wish I can enlighten a lot more people, through these podcasts, which I have. I hope I continue doing that. I hope I don't get censored myself. I actually, believe it or not, have been shadow banned a few weeks ago on YouTube for COVID misinformation, but that's hearsay. But I keep on telling people this. We are living in a modern era of a scenario of Nazi Germany. They did the same thing in Nazi Germany with, show me your papers and, concentration camps. I mean, we're living through a Nazi Germany type of government. Hitler did this to his own people with the control factors, with just about everything. And I keep on telling people this: if you don't know your history, you're condemned to repeat it. And we're repeating our own history. The racism, coming back from the 60s and 70s, 50s. Everything is coming back. It's just, but here's the thing. Here's my closing here, Jimmy. Is this the ultimate payback from the radical left from what Donald Trump was trying to create here for the United States in this 4 years of his tenure? Is this the ultimate payback of what the Democrats are trying to do? Because I mean, they're not stupid. They know what Donald Trump was doing in for his 4 years of his office, right? They know what he was doing. You know, the whole MAGA movement, that was not just a bumper sticker, a political message. That was, I mean, he was truly making this country great. I mean,
Well,
do you think it's a payback? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think there's certain individuals that have played their part in it. I think that certain cabinets, certain individuals never left office in a sense, right? They kind of just carried over their agenda over the years. So the 4 years of Donald Trump was under a microscope, and those people used every influence they had to really discredit the guy. Unfortunately, too, I will say this: he never knew when to kind of shut his mouth, which definitely hurt.
Yeah,
but
a little bit.
in that same breath, though, I mean, we've seen a lot of cool stuff happen in those 4 years. We had North Korea and South Korea holding hands like they were little kids in a park. We had lower gas prices. We had a tax credit that we seen back. I mean, for days, I think most people focus on some of the silly things that may have happened out of it, right? But is it there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Direct, do I think that they want this country to crash and burn? I do. I think that, unfortunately, in order for a new type of government to come out of it, something that they want, right? A new framework, you have to destroy the old one. So, I mean, I think that they've been trying very hard to destroy the Constitution and the foundation of what this country is, and I think they will continue to do that until they succeed or they lose. But even when they lose, they'll go back into hiding and they'll do the same thing. It took years, but they were able to play it off by indoctrinating our children in public schools and kind of moving forward with certain things like that. So yeah, unfortunately, those are the type of people that are on a metaphorical airplane, and they don't like the captain, so they want them to crash the plane. Unfortunately.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Jimmy, before I close it out, I have about 2 minutes left on the show. I got my last question to ask you. Coming up into the midterms, what do you see for the midterms? Do you see a positive change happening in the midterms and possibly the general election? What's your insight on that?
I do see it maybe moving into a positive direction, because I do feel that people are tired of what's been going on. I think I'm going to have to watch it a little more closely to make a better decision, to have a better answer on that. But I do think that hopefully, the GOP stands strong and starts winning some more seats, and we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Only God can tell, right? But thank you for coming on, guys. Thank you for coming on, Jimmy. It's been an honor to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Guys, you want to listen to any current or former episode, check out the podcast website, patriotanglepodcast.com. And as always, guys, we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks a lot.
You just heard an episode of the Patriot Angle Podcast, an Anchor platform.